There's a good reason I don't hunt anymore. Written by Nana Mouse. I just got back my annual hunting trip with the guys. Our wives joke that we only go out there to drink in the woods, and these days they're pretty much right. Every year I pack my gun and my gear, drive out to our normal spot, and set up camp with the guys. We hang around for 2 or 3 days, and catch up on what our families are up to, and how work is going. The normal stuff. Some meals are cold cuts, others are cooked over the fire. It's mostly a nice trip. On our last night in the woods, we eat around the fire and break out our last case of beer. Once we're all a couple of beers deep and the fire is getting low, it's time. We go around and tell our stories, same as last year and the years before. You get the point. We never talk about this outside of the annual trip, so this is our one chance a year to admit, out loud, why none of us hunt anymore. Ben starts. He was the first one to stop hunting, and the first time he told us this story, none of us believed him. He was lining up a shot one day on a massive trophy buck when it turned its head and stared straight down his scope at him. Steam came out of its nostrils, and the rest of its body turned towards him. When he lowered his gun, he saw the entire herd staring him down. He didn't have the nerve to take the shot. He swears they stood there staring at him the entire walk back. Chris is next, and he tells his story quickly. He'd been scoping out this one game trail, and when the herd finally came through, every last one of them was running backwards. He hid in his blind for nearly an hour before running back to his car. Thomas admits he was on edge the last time he hunted, thinking about their stories. He was relieved when he saw a normal deer, walking and acting completely normal. He swears up and down he landed 8 perfect shots, but every time it flickered and kept gazing. When it's my turn, I finish my beer, shrug, and tell them I saw the same thing Chris did. The other guys nod while staring into the fire. That's when the guy next to me downs the rest of his beer, stomps the can flat, stands up without a word, and walks away into the woods. We don't talk about him. We don't look at him. We don't ask where the log came from that he was sitting on. We never see him sit down. But every year, when we're ready to tell our stories, he's suddenly sitting beside me, just like the day I first saw him, when he was suddenly sitting beside me in my tree stand. He's the real reason I stopped hunting.
Keep Your Eyes Closed, written by psyopticnerve. The camping trip started off with the 5 of us rolling up in a minivan loaned out by apprehensive parents, passing joints, sipping warm beer, not a care in the world. Eventually, we saw the cabin that James had talked up so much while Sarah jarred us with her braking. We crawled out excitedly, myself, Dom, Carrie, and Sarah, taking in the sight. For all the shit James could talk, his description was entirely accurate. I'd been stuck in a rut the last few months, but looking around the beautiful landscape, I was glad James had finally convinced me to come. James got a fire going. After a while, we were all fairly hammered. "So, who has a good ghost story?" James asked, looking around at us eagerly. Not getting the reaction he'd hoped for, James decided it was up to him. "I've got one." He glanced at Sarah to make sure she was into it. She didn't seem against it. I groaned. This was sure to be long-winded. "The important thing," James started, "is that we all keep our eyes closed." I'm not doing that, Carrie said flatly. It'll be worth it, I promise. It's a good one. James was practically begging. Carrie glanced at Dom, who seemed interested in hearing the story. She sighed, crossed her arms. Fine. James beamed at her. I finished my beer, trying to act like I wasn't just as nervous as Carrie. Now there is no opening our eyes until it's over. It will ruin it. James drove this point again, his voice much lower than usual. We all agreed to humor him. I took one last look at everyone before James began his tale. Deep in these woods, up on the mountain, there was a sinister spirit that fed on fear, latching onto anyone who was unfortunate enough to come across it. This shadow stayed with you until it had taken away anything you had inside, except for pain and fear. James sounded like he was on the other end of a tunnel. As it consumed, it grew strong enough to assume a physical form. It stalked its prey right to their homes, whispering in their dreams. They tried to believe it was just nightmares, that they were simply hearing the whispers of the wind. This would go on for months, as the creature wanted its prey ripe with terror. Shivers ran down my spine. The urge to open my eyes was overwhelming. When it came to harvest, James's voice was now distorted, demonic in every right. It would appear to you as a human. It would pretend to be your friend. You would spend so much time around it, never realizing what it was, until one day you saw its true form, and your soul was taken. My heart slammed against my ribs. Now that you know, the voice speaking was not James. I was certain. Do you dare open your eyes?